I was like, oh, like we might have to get Kayla 4-wheel drive. I've got a Subaru all-wheel drive. I'd be fine, but yeah, Kayla might actually need a 4-wheel drive to do
Mm,
this in the when it's wet out, which is a lot of the time here in Georgia. It's wet out, so
that's gonna be a
anyways,
lot of mud.
yeah, yeah. I don't think that's gonna be the one for us, but I did love the property, dude. It had 6 cows on it currently,
Hmm.
uh, 5 acres, quarter-acre pond. It's pretty sweet.
All right, here we are. We've added Instagram.
Look at that,
Yeah, see how that works out.
Instagram official.
So we're talking about the I made dude, I made I was on the TikTok rampage.
Were you really just looking at TikToks on this? Were people going crazy?
No, it was I was like I didn't know how to react. I'm talking NBC, CBS, ABC, like national news people coming out saying stuff that is just simply not true.
Yeah,
And I'm just like, wait a minute. Like so basically they were painting the picture like, oh, the days of 6% and 5% commissions are gone. I'm like, it was not and sellers can now negotiate. You
you can always
really?
negotiate. Yeah.
Really?
Well,
Like
doesn't it
really?
make you wonder about all the other stuff? Because we know about this industry
It
deeply. Doesn't it
mhm.
make you wonder about all the stuff that they report on that we don't know anything about, and we just go, oh, it sounds plausible.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. But it's like but it's like I just and you know my position, right? I'm very much anti NAR. I'm very much anti sucky agents, right? I'm very consumer friendly, but the but I'm also like, hey, let's tell the truth.
yeah, yeah,
Like let's not just make stuff up. And there have been few agents that I've seen that actually like absolutely nailed it in terms of laying it out. But I was shocked. Like I'm
yeah.
talking I think Good Morning America, um uh just like the daytime news talk shows that everybody will know if you just name it.
Hmm.
They're all like, oh, the way oh, the thing that bothers me the most, housing prices are gonna come down. I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's wild. That's a wild thing to think.
Are you really kidding me? Like, can
Yeah,
we actually do the math?
yeah.
Right? And another popular one was, oh, it's gonna be more affordable now. By the way, I have a hot take on a conspiracy theory too, so I'll drop that at the end.
Okay, I'll remind
Um,
you. I'm literally taking a note.
but
Jay's
but like
conspiracy.
but what's your just gut feeling so far? Like, what have you heard? What's your take on this?
And, in some ways, I think we got a couple of things that are really good, right? MLS,
Oh,
you're
by
not
the
going to be
way,
required.
guess who is listening on Instagram? I'll just
Who's
give you
who's
one
listening
guess.
right now?
Just
Lisa?
Lisa Bender.
What's up,
Love you,
Lisa?
Lisa.
Hey, Lisa. I'm sorry. I didn't hear your voicemail until like 3 weeks after you left it, and then I was a jerk and didn't call you back. So I owe you a call. Um,
Anyways, go ahead.
okay. So the idea that um, it's not going to be required as a part of any MLS now that there's a buy side commission, I think is good. Um, I think that agents not being forced into this cooperative structure, this necessarily cooperative structure of the MLS, essentially forcing realtors to be a part of the MLS or forcing people being a part of the MLS to be realtors. That's good, but I think it kind of stopped there. I think 400 and what was it, 416 million is a slap on the wrist,
Mm-hmm.
and I get the reason they ended up settling because NAR would have just spent every dollar they had, and then the plaintiffs would have gotten nothing. Um, but I'm just kind of a bummer. Like it feels like more of the same is just going to happen. I think it is going to force some people to exit the industry. The people who are terrified right now of buyer's agency agreements and of stating that, hey, this is my fee, um, are absolutely going to have a really hard time. They've just got to get over that. And I actually think that's a very good part. It'll professionalize the buyer's agency a little bit more. I also think I don't think it's going to change housing prices in any way but up. I like they don't go down here. What's going to happen is the sellers are still going to expect, even if they're, if they're paying their agent 3% and then another agent 4%, they're just pocketing the other two. They're not going to look at the house across the street that is the exact same house as theirs that sold
Mm-hmm.
for 250 and go, well, they sold for 250 and now I've got to minus the 2% that I'm not paying to a buyer's agent and lower the price that much. There's just no way. That's not what's happening. They're going to say, hey, that house sold for 250. I'm going to try to get 255 for it, and I also get to pay 2% less or 1% less or whatever the negotiated rate is going to be. But net, the price is going to go up. Now, for all those people going, oh, it's going to make homes less affordable from the standpoint of like first time home buyers aren't going to be able to buy. That's not true. That's not true. There's a couple of things that are going to happen. First of all, it's going to be just like rolling in closing cost.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to figure out the rules and what it looks like. Right now it's rolled in because the seller pays it. Um, if we just make contracts and say, hey, the seller's to pay the buyer's broker 3%, there should be no problem rolling that in. If we take the other tact as an industry and go, hey, the buyer needs to pay 3% and we want to roll that into the loan, that would be a different story. Um, of how much money is being contributed from that loan to something that's not of the house. But as long as we take the tact of, hey, I'm buying this house for 255 and my agent needs to be paid by the seller 2%, I think
It's
it
a
just rolls right.
negotiable item,
It's a
right?
negotiable item,
I mean,
and
have you heard?
it shouldn't be a problem.
Right. Have you heard? Like, I heard a story where a buyer went to see a house. They saw a car. I don't know what kind of car. They saw a car in the garage and actually negotiated the car as part of the purchase.
I've always been told to negotiate personal items outside, but in my experience, like anytime I've had somebody leave something that's not real property with the house, we just say,
You just
"Oh, the
you
couch
just don't.
stays."
Yep. You just
Just
don't
the
say
couch
nothing.
stays.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. To leave the couch.
Absolutely. Now,
Um,
here's the thing. Lisa brings up a good point, right? Lack of transparency was the issue,
Amen.
right?
Amen.
No one ever complained, like no seller complained that I paid too much money. No one ever, because unless they were really represented by like a mediocre agent, right? Because most sellers that I've come across, they're like over the moon about how great the agent was. No mention of, oh, I paid X, blah blah blah. It, the core issue was the fact that it just wasn't properly disclosed, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
now if everybody discloses everything, then let the truth just like run with it.
yeah. Well, I'm still seeing people go, well, it's the end of the era where buyers agents were free. And I'm going, bro, they
No,
were never
they were never
free.
free.
They were never free. They're being paid on your behalf by somebody else.
Right.
Like like, and so all those agents who say that, like, please don't say that that's what was
It
happening because that's not what was happening. Yeah, certainly more transparency. And listen, I from day one, nearly, I've done buyer's agency agreements. Now, a big part of
mm-hmm.
that was because right at the beginning of my career, when hanging out with Lisa Bender, we did Redfin partner work,
Mm-hmm.
and they required buyer agency agreements. And so I learned immediately, oh, do a buyer's agency agreement. But I found so often during my time selling homes that it professionalizes everything, even with a friend. You sit down with them before you go on the first tour and you go, hey, let's talk about what you're looking to get out of this. Let's talk about what I'm going to do. Let's talk about what you're going to do. And here's the next steps. And oh, by the way, here's the buyer's agency agreement. You don't need to sign it right now. But as we start going looking at houses, I'm going to need you to sign that. It just makes sure that we have all of the rules of this relationship and we can agree to them. You can walk away at any time. I can walk away at any time. And I think a lot of people are fearful of doing that, but I never had a bad reaction from that. Never,
And
not once.
we talked about this couple of weeks ago, where like, what is wrong with the idea of I'm providing you a service, so I'm gonna put it in writing of what service I'm providing.
Yeah. Here's the
Like,
rules. Yeah.
what is wrong with like having that in
Yeah.
writing?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never. I do get the hesitancy, right? Like you're asking, like it's like asking for a kiss, not just on the first date, but like in the first 5 minutes, right? Like it feels like it could be a fast close, but that's why sitting down and having either a before the first tour, sitting down in a coffee shop and having a conversation about goals
Mm-hmm.
and current dissatisfaction and future promise that you're trying to help people achieve, or doing that at the very first home. Like you might be a person who gets leads or gets a lot of referrals, or you're a buyer's agent on a team and you meet people at the house on a regular basis. There's nothing wrong with you. Like I used to tour the house and get to know them and do the connection thing. And then you kind of mosey towards the kitchen and I would do the counter lean, right? And just start talking. So tell me a little bit more. What made you decide now's the time? This is when you can start. And it's the same thing when you're doing a listing appointment. Some people like to do this at the beginning. Some people like to see the house. Some people break it up. But you're having a conversation about the service that you provide. The problem here, Jay, is not one of transparency necessarily. I think it's that most buyer's agents don't provide a great service.
Correct. Correct.
That's
Now,
the real problem. And so that's why they don't want to define it, because what do they really do?
right.
A
It's
lot of
like,
times, not
i-
everybody, but
if you're expecting someone to compensate you, you got to bring value, right?
yep.
And lot of agents out there, they don't know what that value is, right? But I kind of have a comeback for that, asking for a first kiss. I don't think it's asking for a first kiss. It's just a mere agreement of where are we going to meet to have the date.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
you
Yeah, yeah.
gotta, like it's not, come on, like it's not a
We're just gonna negotiate the first
right.
date up front.
Yeah.
Like, hey, listen, we're gonna start at coffee. There is a movie,
It,
but if either of us aren't feeling it,
100%. And
very
by
modern
the way,
dating.
to my understanding, at least in the state of Washington, what's the term? Like you can terminate it unilaterally, right?
Unilaterally.
One party can just say, "Hey, forget it. Like I'm done."
Yeah. By the way, don't be that brokerage or that team or that agent who, in the states where that isn't required, tries to lock people in. Like, don't be that guy who
Well, it's
tries
like
to just sign people up for a year, and if
right,
you
right,
buy
right.
a house anytime in the next
There,
year,
did you see any of Wendy's posts? There's like apparently a fairly well-known agent in Georgia, and this was, I think, on the listing side, like would not let the client get out of the thing. They go through the whole thing without them, and then later sues them. Like
I didn't see anything from Wendy on this. I did see. I read something
somebody in
about it
Georgia.
somewhere.
Yeah, somebody in
That's
Georgia.
George. Listen, man, as somebody currently buying real estate in not Atlanta, that's the
Hmm.
only way to say it, right? Like there's Georgia and then there's Atlanta. I guess you
Hmm.
could call Augusta another big, but like there's a lot of weirdness that goes on out here, brother. I'm actually turning somebody into like the real estate commission,
Oh, do it.
because they first of all, I reached out for my investment account email, by the way. Like it's very clear that I'm not like some guy off the street, and I was just asking a couple of questions about the house. My agent was out of town, so I reached out and said, hey, interested in this house, had a few questions, can you send the seller disclosure over? Here's my questions. Doesn't respond. Hey, bump to the top. Next day, maybe you're not the right person. Is there a better person to reach out? Next day, call, email, nobody reaches out. He
Wow.
finally gets back to me like 5 days later. My agent's already come back. She's gotten the information from the MLS for me. And I'm reading through this disclosure and everything's marked no. Well, we walk into this house, bro, it's like a skateboard park. It's like this inside. And they mark no foundation issues, no material fact findings, nothing. So the guy's just not responding to
Hmm.
anybody. And he just straight up had them rubber stamp a seller's disclosure.
And that he probably charged 7%. I just have a feeling.
He
You
seems
know,
like the type. He
it's
seems like the type.
now it's how do you feel about, like there's definitely gonna be an impact on the buyer's agent, no doubt, right?
Yeah.
Because the way we do business is gonna be completely different. However, I I put it like the hands that are going to reach for the pie is about to get reduced
Yeah.
fairly dramatically. So if you are the one that can adapt and then get with the program, like the quicker you can do it, if you are actual professional that know how to do business, like you're actually like this could actually be a good thing for you.
Yeah, I actually do think it's going to be a really good thing for people. And even though I think there's going to be more commission compression from this,
Mm-hmm.
I also think that there's going to be the average full time agent doing business is going to do more business.
Right,
And I
right.
think the agents who can think of the buy side just like the listing side, where they're going to sit down and have a conversation about goals. Like agents don't do like the amount of buyers agents that don't do that boggles my mind. Right? They never like really try like, or they don't even have phone calls. They're just like, and listen, sometimes it's just trying to be helpful. They're like, "Oh, you want a bigger house? I've got the perfect one for you. It's the 3 bedroom, 2 bath split level down the street," right? Like they get excited and they just start trying to help and they never take the time to
Right.
understand this
It
person's journey.
it just comes back to like not having that foundation of, like you said, how this journey needs to kind of like walk through, right?
Yeah.
Um it's not. I you know how I feel about NAR slash all the brokerages like not providing enough education, enough
Yeah.
training, enough just not just how to write a contract, but like actually how
But
do you
also that.
run like also that too, yeah. But how to run this like a business, right?
Yeah.
Let me circle back to the commission compression a little bit. I actually don't think that there's gonna be a whole lot of that, and here's why. Do you believe that when you actually do compensate buyer's agent, you will get more traffic to your listing? Yes or no?
Oh, yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
So do
Which
I.
is a problem in and of itself though.
Yep. So do I. I get it. I get it. But that's just the reality, right?
Yeah.
Now it'll be tricky because you cannot put it on the MLS. So here's my first point. What if you have a single property website that is off of MLS?
I don't know. There's probably going to end up being some rules around
Mm-hmm.
that. But yeah, you could do that. But here's my thing. I think it's great. Don't offer like I wish they would have just said no offering. It's a
Mm-hmm.
negotiable item, but it's not something that's offered. I know we can't do that, but I think
Wait,
that
but
that would have been.
that's essentially what it is, though. They don't have to offer it,
They don't have to, but there's
right?
still going to be people offering. So here's the first call.
Mm-hmm.
Ring ring. Hey Jay, I see you're listing over at 123 Main Street. Let me ask a couple of questions before I ask the one I really care about. Here's the one I really care about. So what's the commission?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how
Yep.
it's gonna go. What's the? I think that's odd. I think it is
What?
going to reduce commission though,
Well,
because here's the
since
deal: people that we work with
mm-hmm.
aren't going to have reduced commissions, right?
Right.
By the way, I often worked at 2 or 2.5%. Like that was very common. Like I never like was like, oh, this house is 2.5. I'm not going to represent you on it, or you have to make up the difference. That was the offered commission. I was totally fine with that. My floor was 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for lower end houses, it was even
So
lower. Not that there's
so
a lot of
here's the
those in
thing.
Seattle.
Let me actually respond to that role play. Right. It's like, hey,
Mm,
Lucas, like it's negotiable.
perfect. That's exactly what everybody should be saying.
Yeah, it's negotiable. I
Yeah,
don't have to give you a number, right?
yeah.
I,
But your listing agreement's still going to have a number.
right, but the buyer's agent don't get to see the listing agreement.
Yeah, I do wonder though what the MLS is going to do. I
Mhm.
assume that there's going to be some requirement of
And
disclosure.
by the way, I think we should just put this blanket like disclosure out there. None of this is set in stone.
Well,
It's
that's
got
the thing. Like, and every MLS and every NAR chapter and every state is going to handle this
right,
whole situation differently. It's
right.
going to take years before it all shakes out. But here's why I think there is commission compression. There's a lot of people who have a hard time asking for their worth.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there's plenty of people who aren't worth 3% or even 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's plenty of that that goes around as well. So I think you're going to have a lot of people kind of shying away from that. The unfortunate thing is some of the worst agents are going to have the least amount of problems asking for the highest buy side commission.
Correct, because they're just gonna be like, oh well, whatever.
Yeah, they're going to be the people who are like, "Oh, I just got my license last month, and my aunt wants me to take a reduced commission. How do I make her pay me full commission?" You know,
Right.
in quotes.
And all the coaching training stuff and one like I've heard of many these sessions where, oh, here's how the objection to commission reduction, right?
What part of my
It's
service would you like me to discount?
exactly like agents are literally coached on, trained to try to get as much as they can,
Totally understandable.
right? I mean, I guess rightfully so, right?
Yeah, get paid.
Right,
I got no problem with people getting paid.
and it's like I think someone responded to one of my TikTok. They were like, "Oh well, there's agents out there getting 7%." I'm like, you know what? More power to them.
Yeah. Those agents getting 7% though are in areas that are a 7% standard. And usually there's like these weird
Whoa, buddy.
standard. I can say it. I ain't a
No,
realtor.
well, I know. But I'm just saying,
Realtor.
no standard. Come on now. but it's like it's insane. So I came up with a scenario.
Agreed, Ryan, by the way. I don't know if you saw his comment. He said this will be the thinning of the herd. All the realtors that should not be realtors will be gone.
100%.
And all the part-time realtors will probably be gone.
100%.
I think that's exactly it.
So I came up with this scenario, and I came up with this in hoping that I can make this into a skit, right? So here's how the future of real estate agent is going to look like. Buyer agent, right, has to approach the buyer. So Lucas, you're the buyer, I'm the buyer agent, and I go, "Hey Lucas, we have to sign this form, right? This is what I'm gonna do, and this is the area and blah blah blah, right? And the compensation, right, that I would like to get is, let's just say 2%. And I'm gonna say something like, we're going to negotiate this so that it doesn't come out of your pocket. However, if it doesn't, worst case scenario, right, it does have to come from you."
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? So now I've agreed with you that my compensation is 2%.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm ring Lucas, the listing agent, right? So Lucas, like, we want this house, we like it, right? And then we're like, okay, we're gonna write an offer, and it turns out that Lucas, the listing agent, is a smart agent and got the sellers to actually pay 2.5% buyer agent compensation.
Yeah.
Guess how much the buyer agent gets paid?
2%.
2%, because it was already laid out, right?
Yeah.
Guess what happens to the other 0.5%?
Closing costs, baby.
There you go.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, that's exactly how it should lay out. By the way, I think everybody should just get really comfortable with two things. One, your offers are going to be net offers. You're going to like, and coming from the Seattle area where we did all the escalation clauses and there wasn't a ton, like, it just got very convoluted. It would be like, oh, if it's cash buyer this, and if it's people are going to have to get comfortable talking slightly more complicated numbers. This offer here is 255, but its net is 245. This offer here is 250, but its net is 248 or whatever, right? Like however it works out. So this number looks higher, this one's lower. I can't tell you how many agents over the years I've had a hard time, like, I've had people with escalation clauses just go, okay, we'll do the escalation clause. I'll provide you the other offer, the arm's length offer, but I just need you to write it like the actual price in because it's too confusing. So we're going to have to get comfortable with net offers. The other thing we have to get comfortable doing is my fee for working at this level is 2%. And we're also going to have to get comfortable with tiered pricing. It could be something like it's 4% for the first 100,000, it's 2.5 for the next 200,000, and it's 1% after that.
That's another creative way of doing it.
Like,
Yep.
I think we already see that on the listing side, though I don't know that a lot of people talk about it. I know a lot of agents who do this kind of tiered pricing structure, And they do tiered pricing over list price as well. So they'll be like, hey, here's where we're going to list it at, but my real pay doesn't kick in until I get it above this.
Right.
So I want to list low so that we can get higher and get multiple offers. I'm willing to bet my commission on that. See, a
I
lot
mean,
of
like,
listing agents do that stuff. We
right.
should do that on the buy side as well.
Like athletes have performance driven incentives, right?
Yeah.
So why can't we say, all right, we're gonna list at 1 million, and like even a buy. Okay, let's not talk about listing agents because like they're gonna be fine, right? They're gonna be
Listing
fine.
agents
Like
is fine.
listing agents are the one that are either neutral or like the winners, right? Like they're fine. Just stay put. So if you're a buyer's agent, and you take your buyers through, like, okay, like what are your goals, like what are blah blah blah. So let's say you see a house that's listed for $1 million, you keep talking about 250. I'm like, you can't find nothing around here for 250.
I know. I'm in Georgia brain,
I
bro.
know, I
Come
know.
on down.
So if we're talking about $1 million house, right? And let's say we say, okay, like I'm gonna charge 2%, but then every $10,000 I can save you
Yeah.
from the listed price, like there's a kicker.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Or
think of it
whatever.
think of how many properties. I'll tell you. First of all, I was working with my. Oh, hold on. Let's read what Ryan said. Unfortunately, these changes will likely exacerbate challenges for lower to middle class buyers. I mean, I could see that potentially pushing
Correct.
further out of the housing market. Yeah, listen, Ryan, as a guy who's on the dark side, um, only Atlanta is the only place where single family investor companies own more than 5% of the housing stock. That's the only place in the US. It's certainly becoming more prevalent, especially in secondary and tertiary markets. I don't think that's the main pressure though. The main pressure is a lot of people who have houses are not selling their houses and they're becoming these kind of part-time investors. And so if you're including that in the number, these people who have, they got married and they kept their two individual houses, rented them out. I think we're going to see a lot of that continue to be the problem. I don't see the the Blackstones of the world and BlackRock and SFR3 ramping up to like 10% of the purchasing power.
So since we're on this subject, I'll just go ahead and give you my conspiracy theory.
Oh, here, yeah, hit it. I can check this off the list of things you wanted to talk about.
I'm a big fan of whenever something is like making a lot of noise, instead of focusing on the noise, I try to kind of look around and say, like, what are they trying to hide? Like, what are they trying to get me to kind of steer away from?
Put my tinfoil hat on.
And that's kind of where Ryan's kind of in the ballpark of where I was headed, right? It's like, is there some super, top 1% people over there conspiring, trying to make it so that like nobody's gonna be able to own a house, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean seriously, like let's talk. And again, our beloved Lisa, like I literally have fought her on this, but like now I'm coming around to like understanding where she's coming from. Like, take a first time home buyer. Take a veteran who's doing like a VA loan, and they really can't come up with a down payment. I was kind of saying I was actually being a bit of a jerk because I was like, if you can't afford it, you shouldn't buy it, right? But then I thought about it more and I go, man, how are these people ever going to get the opportunity? Like, so I kind of said something like, if you are looking at like 600,000, then maybe you need to come down on the price level if you can't afford to pay the buyer's agent or whatever. But then like, what if you are like absolutely at that cusp of like the lowest end? Because that results to you not being able to get it. So,
well, I really do think outside of the most extreme markets, rolling this into the price isn't going to be a problem. And by the way, you
but
want to
that's
know who's
also
buying
the-
at 5% in Seattle during the hottest times of the world? San Francisco, Austin, Boston, nobody. Nobody's buying at that. They're buying at 20% down minimum. For the last year I sold real estate, I didn't work
Right.
with a single person who was under 15% down on $500,000 plus houses.
Now, people that can afford that, that's all good. But we're
No, but
talking
that's my
about
point. Like, if
right,
you're in that market, you're not gonna win
right,
regardless. This 3% isn't gonna sway you either way.
correct.
And, I talk about rolling it in. In those markets, you're not gonna be able to roll it in because they don't wanna roll anything to bring the price up, right? The same way that you're doing appraisal waivers in those markets, going,
Right.
"Well, if it doesn't appraise, I'll put an extra 5% down to cover that appraisal gap up to 5%." But those people aren't the lower I don't think that's the lower and the lower middle class that Ryan's necessarily talking about, right? Like, he's talking about the people buying in my area, actually,
Mhm.
where the average house price is around 250 or 3, something like that out here. Um, and I don't know that it is gonna I'm not sure what's gonna happen. I don't know that it's that because,
Well, that's
like,
why it's
out
a
here,
conspiracy
it's
theory.
very uncommon for an FHA loan not to get the max 5 or 6%
Mm.
in closing, like in buy down points. Like, it happens all the time out here. So if you list your home at 250 and you're paying 6% in realtor fees, you expect if you get an FHA, it's going to be another 6% that you're paying in closing costs. It's like built in a little bit.
My likely scenario that if I had to like take a shot at potentially what would happen is just, I mean, what's the percentage, and Ryan, maybe you know this, what's the percentage of mortgage that it's either Freddie or Fannie, like government owned? Isn't it like something ridiculous, like 80% or something, or 70, 80%? No,
Oh, that's a good question. I
it's
have
pretty
no
high,
clue.
right? I think, right?
I have no
So
clue.
I mean, I feel like the government is just gonna come in and be like, okay, like we're gonna change some things around so that like this could happen.
Oh man, I have to go take a look. Oh, I think that's by the way, I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Hmm.
Did you know you can on a car that's newer than 10 years, you can if it's used, you can get a loan for 150% of the car's value.
Oh,
They do that so you
nice.
can roll your old car that's upside down into it.
That's a great way to just keep people not
In debt and
making
not
any
owning
advance
anything.
in. Yep,
Listen, I'd
exactly.
like is Klaus, whatever the guy's last name from the World or Economic Forum, like you're gonna own nothing and you're gonna like it. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
maybe that's true. And I think homeownership is getting harder, but I don't think this is the thing that's gonna make it harder. I think the thing that's making it harder is majority is Fannie and Freddie, which makes sense, by the way. The average house price in America, I mean, it's now over 300,000, but
Right.
like most people are going to take that FHA, even if they have 20% down. Um, I just I don't know that this is the thing that's going to make it harder. You know what made it harder is all this inflation. Like like it just got really expensive to buy a house.
It just yep. So now that we're talking about price, let me just tell you, this does not this does not make houses cheaper. It just doesn't.
No,
Okay. I mean, not cheaper is not the word. Affordable, because that's the buzzword that was going on a lot of the mainstream like news and whatever. They're like, oh, like housing is going to be more affordable now that the settlement is happening. No, you're wrong, right?
no, yeah.
If there's a $500,000 house, and let's say you are paying a 6% commission, and now you don't have to. Let's say you only have to pay 3. So now all of a sudden the $500,000 house is now 485. Oh my gosh, it became so much more affordable.
And that's
Are
not
you
going to
serious?
be what happened. Remember,
Right.
like I said this at the beginning, if that house is worth 500,000 because they have the mirror
It's just
copy
worth
across the street,
500,000.
it's worth 500,000. They're
Right.
not going to give that money back up.
Right.
That's just not how people work. As somebody who tries to convince people to sell houses all the time, that's not how people are. They get anchored to a number. The market is going to stay up at that. And I think it will increase a little bit from this. Here's one thing that we haven't talked about yet today that I think will happen. I think a lot of smart buyer's agent teams and a lot of smart larger real estate companies are going to start offering buyer services free.
Yep.
Like actually legitimately free. And if there's a buyer's commission on the other side, they're going to put it towards points automatically.
There you
And they're
go.
going to do this so that they can get the listing business. You
It's
sell with us,
client,
you buy for free.
it's customer
Yeah.
acquisition
Yeah.
strategy.
And maybe it's, there's a $1,500 fee or whatever so they can pay their buyer's agent.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean,
or offset that
what's
cost.
wrong with just offering flat fee? Like my brokerage was
Purple
literally
was doing
gonna
it for a
do
while.
this. I
Yeah.
know, like just I like where is this notion of like I'm worth 3% coming from? Like I understand the whole risk thing. I understand you.
We should
By
have
the way,
Saul Klein come on
I
and talk about it. I bet he could tell us.
dude, I like the comment that I get every time I kind of bring up this argument is like, you know how many people I have shown homes for like 2, 3 years and never got, honestly, if you had to put up with people looking at homes for 2, 3 years,
You
something
earned
is
it.
broken with the way you do business,
That is so true. That is so true. I
right?
actually learned this from Lisa. Well, since she's on, I might as well talk about her. The have another conversation with a
Mm-hmm.
moment where it's like you've looked at a lot of homes.
Right.
Do we need to rethink about your search parameters?
100%. It's the way you operate your business.
Yeah.
It's not that. So you can indeed like do it, right? Like I would rather. I mean, I don't know. What's the number? Is it 5,000, 10,000? If I was going back into being a buyer's, I don't really consider myself ever have been a buyer's agent. But if I were to
Mm,
do it, I would say, okay, like I'm gonna charge you a flat fee X, whatever that is, and we're gonna go look at up to like 30 houses.
yeah.
And then at that point, it's extra whatever for because the beauty of our industry is that everything is negotiable.
Yeah.
If I can get you to sign off on it, I can actually say, I'm gonna charge you $20 per mile.
We
If we can agree on it, right?
well, we might see the rise of these showing agents a lot more as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? To like, like if I were to go back and be a buyer's agent, you better believe I'm not looking at houses
I,
until you've decided you want to buy it, and then I'll come out and meet you. But I'm gonna send my agent out. I'm not gonna go look at 15 houses with you this weekend. I'm
yep.
just not. I don't love anybody I don't love my wife that much. Like
Yeah, you do.
I do. I'd go see that many. But first of all, you go blind. I actually never let clients do that. I was like, "Hey,
Right.
let's find the 6 that we're going to see over the next few days."
Dude,
Like the 15's a lot.
I see potentially, and I think a service like this already exists, but it could just come down to someone developing an app that says who can open door, like who's closest.
Oh, there's
It's
a
it's
there's a company that already does that.
is
I'm blanking
is
on their
show. Are
name.
you talking about Xiaomi?
Xiaomi. Yeah.
But Xiaomi is not. It's like who can come, who will accept it, right? But I'm talking about like Uber style, like
Oh yeah.
who is the closest proximity
I mean,
to
I
this
don't mean
house?
to cap my previous CV here, but Redfin does that, man.
Oh,
They flood. So if there's hot homes, like if there's a bunch of hot homes in a neighborhood, they will. I don't actually know if they still do this, but there was a time where they were paying agents, AAs, associate agents, to go be in that area. So that if somebody's on their lunch hour and wants to go see it, they're like, "Oh, we can have somebody there in 5 minutes."
right, right. I
Like
did not know that.
it was awesome.
Dude, by the way, Redfin is like laughing all the way to the bank right now.
Oh, I look forward to seeing what Glenn says.
Hmm.
Actually,
Actually, he
uh,
was he was on. I saved the video. He was on, and basically what he said was, "Oh, we've been trying to do this whole time,"
yeah,
which is true.
he's not. He has
Yeah,
been
which
trying to
is
do
true.
it the whole
Yep,
time.
which is true. So
Like,
so so speaking of which, then who are the winners? If like let's just assume everything stays the way they are, right?
anywhere,
Who's the winner, right? I think like
anywhere, real
home.
estate,
Well,
all the
first of
people
all,
who
it's the
who made the
it's
settlement early.
it's the attorneys, dude. Like
Yeah,
they're making bank.
yeah,
Someone posted like a spreadsheet of how much they were making. Like the paralegal was making like $1 million,
good for her. Aaron
right?
Brockovich up in this motherfucker.
100% Aaron Brockovich, right? So that's that. Now again, also like there's a bunch of people complaining about the attorneys are making a lot of money, like the actual sellers are only gonna get. All right, like don't worry about that, right?
Guy, that's just how it works.
I think like
That's like complaining about a real estate agent driving a nice car.
correct, correct. I think the winners are like homes.com.
Yeah, I could see your perspective on that.
On the opposite spectrum, the loser is like Zillow.
Maybe,
right? I
maybe.
mean, bulk of their revenue is still driven based on buyer referral.
Yeah, but the bulk of their revenue, I mean, you got to remember they've downsized the amount of agents that
Hmm.
they are working with aggressively. Like, and for any agents out here thinking like, oh, that doesn't seem right, go ahead and think about the last time you got a call from Zillow. If you're not a Zillow Premier agent right now, trying to sell you leads, that's not the game anymore. Their game is to work with the most professional agents, and not only that, they want to turn them into partnership referrals. They don't want that's the move that they're making towards Flex.
Right.
Slow down a little bit, but I would be shocked if in the next 3 years we
They
haven't seen
are
all of Zillow move to Flex, that referral model. And I would be shocked if we don't see them take it even a step further towards offering more services up front. Right now, if you call into Zillow, this drives me crazy, by the way. I hate this about Zillow. You're going to talk to Alex Grace. They just name every single person Alex Grace. How dehumanizing. Zillow, get your shit together. It's fucking awful.
Alex
But
Grace. If there's an Alex Grace out there,
yeah.
holler.
So like I hate that part of Zillow. I don't know what executive thought of that, but it was a terrible dehumanizing thing. Sorry. But you're gonna talk to Alex Grace, and they walk the buyers or sellers through a process now. Like they actually ask questions and get more details. And then they serve it to the agent that they think is most likely to be able to actually capitalize on this customer.
Right, but
And they're only going to do more and more of that. Even to the point, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Zillow showing agents in a couple of markets.
yep.
And I don't know that. Nobody's told me that.
Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. If we talked about commission compression earlier,
Mhm.
we all know the more people in the middle, more entity in the middle, like it like that only works if you have a lot to share. So if we're expecting commission compression, like
Yeah.
that just means even less money going to the agent.
I think the biggest winner are the teams,
Hmm.
and they're going to continue to win. They're going to do more deals. Who works with Zillow most closely? Teams. And so I think it is made up with quantity. I think they're going to continue to grow their mortgage business. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they start offering more services up funnel, and to continue justifying a piece. And they will probably at some point go, our minimum commission on a closed sale on this is 0.75 or point 0.5 of the final sale price. You charge whatever you want to your customer, but we get our pound of flesh, even if it's the whole pound.
Yeah, but who does that come from? That's what I'm talking about.
The agent, the team. But I think the teams are going to have more to work with. I really do.
Right. So in a situation where there is nothing being offered from the seller, you're saying then the buyers are paying that.
Yeah. Well, but like
I mean, honestly,
it's going to be rolled in. I would be shocked if more than 1 in 20 people paid the buyer's fee themselves and didn't
oh,
roll it in.
I would say
You
like
think
one
it's
in
high?
100. Like
Yeah.
who in their right mind is gonna, like
Exact- So that's my call out. I
mhm.
think the other winners are players like Redfin. I think this is huge for
Redfin
Redfin.
for sure. Yeah.
Like, I think that this gives them a lot of ways to play in the space that they've wanted to play in before, and they haven't really truly been able to. But now they can start really
S-
doing some interesting things on the buy side. Again, it's been years since they've done anything interesting there.
So
Uh,
how do what? Okay. So right now, right, we're all about like what action can you take right now? Like, what advice do you have for agents? Like, what should
oh,
they be
easy.
doing like right now?
Yeah. So you have a listing presentation, go get yourself a buyer's presentation. If you don't have one, go on Fiverr, hire somebody to design one for you. Put in there the steps of the journey.
Don't call me. I'm too expensive.
Yeah, or you can call Jay and he'll help you
Too
if you want
expensive.
to pay the agency fee. Um, uh, but go get yourself a buyer's presentation. Call your MLS and see what kind of buyer's agency agreement they already have. If they don't have it published, I'm sure they have one. NAR, I'm sure, has one somewhere tucked away, that's got some dust on it. Go dust that shit off. If you're a team, have a lawyer draft one for you off of a couple of different examples. Like, go, I like this part, I don't love this part. Here's the like, here's what I want. And like, if you got the money to spend, have a lawyer draft it, and start doing buyers presentations.
And by the way, this is where like your brokerage has to start earning their money.
Yeah, for sure. I don't expect the brokerages to hop on this before
Mm-hmm.
the states make rules. You
Correct.
should be ahead of it. It's going to be 6 months to a year
Right.
before your MLS comes out with like their final draft. I can almost
Right.
guarantee it. It sucks, but
I hear
like
a lot of
MLSs
people
move slow.
saying it's like July 1, or if it gets approved. I don't know if it's like whichever comes sooner or whatever. But here's my take on what the agent should be doing right now. I think every agent needs to get in front of this issue, because eventually this topic is going to become mainstream, right? And people are going to be asking. So like if you have a website, like I would literally like make a video just to like
Yeah, do an
have
explainer.
a position, yeah. Like
Yeah,
like this is what it says, this is what it could potentially be like, but then this is how I operate,
yeah,
and make it very crystal clear. Like if you have a video on your buyer's page that goes over the buyer agency form, when they come to see you, they would have no problem signing it because they've already seen it.
yeah, yep. The other thing I think that this gives, like, it's an opportunity, and it's probably only an opportunity for the next handful of months, is do some buyers classes
Mm-hmm.
and like kind of pimp the
Right.
like, hey, buying in the age of the new commission rules or
Yep.
something like that. Workshop that title.
Yep.
But then you get the opportunity. Like, I used to love doing these. I think they're wonderful. You get the chance to meet a lot of people. So you literally rent a back room at a local restaurant. You spend $200 in food. You spend a couple $100 in Facebook ads. You'll get 5 to 10 people there pretty easily, and you get to meet people who are thinking about buying enough that they want to do a course. You do it with a lender; they defray the cost a little bit, and you can walk them through this, and then you can take a position on it live and answer questions about it. But like, people, like, this is a bit in the zeitgeist right now. Like, people are talking about it, and now I live in a world where like everybody's real estate all the time, so it's probably a little bit more in my world and our world than maybe our customers. But I
Well,
would say get in
you'd
front of
be
it.
surprised. Like I've heard, like I have had like a meaningful conversation with just regular people.
Yeah. Well, I certainly see it on Twitter right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, non-real estate people on
L-
X.
Let me
Sorry.
let me X. Let me ask you something. You love working with buyers, right? When buyers
Yeah,
come to
100%.
you, how wide is the geographical um reach in terms of like where they're looking?
Oh, man. It's so, like, I'll take Seattle for instance because
Uh-huh.
it's such an interesting market. Um, Generally, people are looking for, they'll say something like, "I want to be within 45 minutes of work. I want to be within 45 minutes of Bellevue or the Microsoft office in Redmond or Seattle, the Facebook office in Seattle or whatever." Um, And so you get a little bit wide there. You get people looking like, and what they're looking for isn't a specific city. They're going, I want a specific commute time,
Mm.
and I want to be close to this type of thing, and I want the schools to be X. And right. And so you get these pockets. And so generally you get people who are, I don't know if this is still true, but I used to get people who are just the west side. And then I get people who are just the east side. But then I'd get the people who didn't have the money. Like, I worked with plenty of people who we had to go, they were living in Redmond, but they were renting. And if they wanted to buy, they had to go to Burien or Renton or Kent. And so, unfortunately, I did have to get, comfortable working in those areas.
Mm.
Now, that geographical distance actually isn't a crazy amount of space, but it is like a time, right? Like,
I was
that
trying
is
to
an hour away.
Right. I was trying to get to like, can you be 4 block famous as a buyer's agent?
I
It sounds
think
like
in
that's a tough
cities.
thing to do.
I think in the city, if you could be a Capitol Hill agent.
Well, so if you think so, where I was getting at is really trying to hone in into your community. Like
Yeah.
because then what that's gonna do is it's going to allow you to be more efficient with your time, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to be stuck in traffic. Like just be the dominant person in your
Mhm.
community. Buy or sell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm the go-to person in Mill Creek, Washington, and someone is interested in buying in Mill Creek, I mean, what's the plus minus? Like
Yeah.
we're talking Bothell, South Everett, Linwood,
Yeah, yeah, and
like
for that, I mean, that is a very specific community, right? That people are interested in buying it.
right.
It's all fairly similar, though I don't know if I'd put Linwood in that. I know
Nah,
people end up
yeah.
going to there, but
Well,
you
no
know,
one starts out at Mill Creek and ends up at Linwood, I don't think. Hey,
I
no
don't know. I think a
disrespect.
lot of people think about it and then they're like, "Fuck, it's really hard to buy here."
Right.
I think the other call out I'd make because listen, I had two niches that I worked aggressively in. I worked with a lot of tech workers that were buying their first home, which was still like, they're buying $700,000, $800,000 first
Mm-hmm.
home, right? So I worked with a lot of people in that area, and I worked with a lot of investors, like a lot of people, not like investment companies, but a lot of like Microsoft guys who have been there for 25 years and they got a lot of scratch and they want to diversify. Like I worked with plenty of people who bought 5 or 6 houses with me and they were purely looking for appreciation plays. And so like they would be a little bit all over the board, right? They're looking for good value buy now that can rent and nearly pay the mortgage,
Hmm.
but in the next 5 to 10 years is going to experience real growth. So, 1 6 month period, that might be Juanita, and the next 6 month period, that might be South Everett,
Right.
that they're heavily playing in. And
Well,
but the niche though is investors. And I got introduced consistently from one investor to the next. Oh, you got to meet my friend. He's thinking about buying his first investment property. Oh, amazing. Let's sit down. We sit down with him, talk about what he wants to do. So it's not quite 4 block famous as in the local area. Um, but then there's if you're I guess it's not luxury out there, but like if you're playing at that $1 million plus in Mill Creek as a buyer's agent, you can live off of that. I just don't think you can do it at the first time home buyer. I think
right,
the first time
right.
home buyers like it just doesn't work quite the same way.
Well, it's sort of like any buyer in the greater Seattle area, sort of.
Yeah.
um, all
Yeah,
right. Well,
listen.
we got. All right. Like we gotta bring it all back. I think the bottom line is this: things are gonna change, and those who adapt and those who can kind of rise above, will end up thriving, right? I mean, I'm sure there were same panic that happened when cars started to come out from horse riding, or when I don't know what is it, when NBA decided that they were going to make a 3-point line, right? Or like when things
Hold on, was there
change.
not a 3-point line when the NBA
Oh,
started?
oh no, there was a, I think it's like in the 50s or 60s, like there were no 3-point line. Um,
I had no clue.
yeah, yeah. So it's like when drastic changes happen, initial reaction is to panic, but you gotta adapt to it, right? And overall, my feeling is that this what happened is a good thing.
I think so.
In terms of just everyone being transparent,
Yeah.
right? Like there is nothing wrong with I do this, you pay this, like straight from the get go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that the outcome is net positive. I don't think we went far enough.
Oh, and not to mention, you know who's going to be paying that settlement fee, right?
The realtors.
Absolutely.
I've
So,
already I've already I think it was Brad Inman wrote on LinkedIn. He was like, I've already heard a couple of people joking that they're just going to raise the rates. Like
oh no,
NAR leadership, NAR
they have
leadership
to,
has already joked about it. Like, oh,
right?
we're just going to charge the agents, and I'm just like, to me, that just makes me boil. Like, and that's why I say I don't think it was taken far enough. I think we let them off the hook.
It
We should like. I wish they would have just demanded a full scale like removal of all executives from NAR over the next 4 years.
If every member gets charged extra $350 in the year 2025, then that number is taken care of. Assuming nobody drops, but I do expect a fair amount of, part-time agents to not exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So,
it's just a total bummer. From that perspective. I
all right.
really wish we would have gone a little harder, but we'll see what happens. I still think NAR's toast. I think this is the beginning of the end
Whoa.
for how they've been acting, and I think a lot of people are going to go, it's time for us to make better rules and I think you're going to see satellites of the local NAR. I think you're
Hmm.
going to see, and it'll start in some place like San Francisco, um, uh, or a more progressive area, and
Dude, I mean,
you're gonna see them split off.
could I not just email every single agent over on this side of Washington and be like, "Hey guys, like I'm going to start a website. You can post your listings here."
Yeah. Well, then you're gonna get the MLS because the MLS can still do exclusive, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
that's. But
Got it.
I honestly though, I think I'll tell you the last thing and then we can go. I pitched this at Zillow and it had a ton of legs, but things got crazy at Zillow, as you know, pretty shortly after. But the thing that I wish they would have done, and somebody could still do this, is like an ethical badge for their agents. Agents that go through specific, like, and I'm not a big diversity guy, but like every day I look at listings and I just go, "Oh, you're violating FHA," or I'm seeing agents talk about how they convinced their seller to pick the single mom over this, or right, like I'm seeing this every day, and I just wish that Zillow would come out with a badge and go, "These agents went through this and have committed to treating people fairly, no matter what, no discrimination on anything."
Right.
Period of
Right.
end of story.
It's way
And
easier
somebody
to
could crush doing that, creating a new organization that goes, remember what realtor used to stand for? Remember what they were chartered for? That's what we're going to do. Because right now, realtor is for the realtor. The CEO came out 10 years ago and said that, not even 10 years ago, 8 years ago, or something like that. He flipped it from realtors are for the people and for America and for a better society and citizenship. Two, NAR exists to serve the agent. And the
correct.
person who can get even 1% of agents committed to community activism around better housing rules, around better housing and development, around better programs to help that low and low middle class actually afford homes. That 1% of agents that can come together and do that, NAR is done.
And they're out there.
There's so many people out
They
there.
are out there.
We just got to find each other.
Right. I think percentage wise from 1.5, NAR member, like it's pretty low, but they're out there.
Yeah.
So, um,
All right, you got a hard stop. We'll
next
respect your
time,
time.
so next episode, we're gonna talk more about 4 Block Famous. I have an idea, and I hate to just keep taking your idea and making it mine, but
Please take them all.
that's how it's gonna be. So, all right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Peace.